Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Cyberpunk 2077. I played it on the Xbox Series X. It's also available on basically everything else. PC, Steam, PlayStation consoles, and Xbox consoles alike. And Stadia, and from what I've heard, it actually plays pretty well there. So obviously I took some extra time to sink into this game because it's a huge game, and I will say right now, it's so big that I did not get the chance to finish it. It's a massive game. So let's get into the story. I picked Street Kid, and I'm not sure how much of a difference that makes in the long run, but whatever. I ended up meeting up with a character named Jackie. He and I became bestest buddies foreverest. And we get hired for a heist. Heist goes sideways, you know, shit goes wrong, like it normally does in videos. Like, wrong enough that he ends up dead, and then wrong enough that you get shot in the head. Fortunately for you, though, I guess, you wound up with a biochip in your head. This specific biochip has the psyche of Johnny Silverhand, a known terrorist who died like 50 years back. Unfortunately for you, while this biochip did bring you back to life, if you don't remove it, Johnny Silverhand will take over your body. If you do remove it, you die. So basically your goal is to get it removed. And I'm gonna say right now, there are some really cool and interesting stories, and I really like all the stories going on in the side missions. I don't necessarily love how they all turn out, but I think they did a really cool job with the storytelling there. I like a lot of the characters. I think they introduce you to a whole host of really interesting characters. That being said, one problem I do have with the story, specifically right after you come back to life, you're paired up with this dude named Takamura, who is taking you to basically the big bad, or a big bad. Then all of a sudden you guys are under attack and you and he are now buddy-buddy. Which, okay, fair enough, you help each other survive that I understand. The problem is, later on, you and he have conversations and he knows stuff about the heist that he couldn't have known without you telling him, yet the conversation where you tell him never happened. Now, I bring that up because there are several times where things are referenced, conversations are referenced that you never had with characters, so that's really kind of messy and weird, and you often feel like you've missed out on something. So while the story is good, there are issues with the storytelling. I'm not sure if those are glitches, I'm not sure if they just did that as a design thing, I just don't know, but either way, it is weird at times how suddenly characters know stuff that you never told them. Now let's get into the audio, and I'm going to say the voiceover work is not phenomenal. It is very good. It is very good, but there are definitely times where it could be a bit better. As for the music, love the music. I really like the radio stations. I like the music for when things are going down in the game. I like I said, the radio stations when you're driving around. I think they did a really good job with the music. Then on to the sound effects, which I gotta say, again, really good sound effects. The problem is there's a lot of missing sound effects and dialogue. There was a time where I was punching a window and there was no glass breaking noises, but if I shot the window, then there was glass breaking noises. That's weird. Plenty of explosions that I should have been hearing and then didn't hear. But on top of that, there are entire phone conversations where my character is responding to dialogue I'm not hearing. And you're definitely going to start to see a pattern the further I go in this review, and, you know, I'll hit it when I wrap up. Which, let's get into the gameplay mechanics and whatnot. This is a first-person open-world RPG. But beyond that, it is one of those games where you can really choose to play more or less how you would like. You can have dialogue options. They can take things in different directions than you might expect. Things can go sideways based on what you've said. I personally, while playing, tried to be a sneaky sneak, and it, you know, failed sometimes. Sometimes it was very successful, other times it did not, so I was always prepped for both. I like the weapon variety in this game, whether it's melee or guns. I think they give you a good amount of each. I think the hacking is pretty cool. It took me a little while to figure out some of the hacking. I feel like the tutorials in this game are, well, to put it simply, kind of weak. I will also say that, like, on your minimap you get these vision cones for when you're sneaking. That could be way better because those vision cones are complete and total bullshit. Which, I mean, in reality, we have a greater view of vision than most video games give us, and the vision cones you see in your minimap are generally horseshit relative to reality. So it is more practical and realistic in that sense, so I do kind of like it. I just wish the vision cones you saw on the minimap actually reflected it. I will also say, as a dude who was sneaking around a lot, when I would do stealth takedowns, you could also hide the bodies in certain containers. I wish there were more of those containers around, but you got XP for it. And I think that is cool. You get XP for your handguns, you get XP for using, machine guns, you get XP for using basically anything and everything, and I think that was a really cool way of doing things. You get XP that focuses on your handguns, so the more you use handguns, the better you become with them. Same with assault rifles, sniper rifles, same with sneaking, same with just brawling, etc. I think that's a really cool way of going about the game. I like the exploration to the city. I like that there's a ton to do. It does admittedly reach that level where you're like, holy shit, there is just so much to do. So that's a bit of a negative. And I will say, while the map is very large, it's not so painfully large, which I enjoy, because there are games that they're big with nothing to do, and this is a very full game with a pretty full map. And I mean, this is one of those games where there is just so much at the core of it that it's kind of hard to really get into every single detail. But I will say, I do think they did a good job with allowing you to make your own decisions, to choose how you're going to tackle certain missions, etc. And like, that bleeds into the dialogue options, that bleeds into the character customization. I mean, I just think they did some impressive things there. Now let's get into the controls, and at their core, they are good. I have had a few times where generally it's when I'm trying to pause or get into the menu, either one, it just won't work, which I don't love. It will take a couple of attempts to actually get into the menu, which that's just bullshit. But when it comes to aiming, when it comes to fighting, when it comes to, moving, I think all of that works well, except for the glitches that I will get into later. Now let's get into the visuals, and I'm gonna say, it's a pretty good looking game. It's not as good as it should be. But that's gonna bleed into, another part of this review that I'm adding to this review specifically. But let's talk about the good things. First off, the faces in this game look really good. There's a lot of detail there. It's actually really impressive. I think the clothing variety is very impressive. The weapon design, very impressive. The enemy design, very impressive. And the world itself is beautiful. It really is a beautiful looking world, and I really think that it captures what they're going for. And by beautiful, I mean it's beautifully rendered, beautifully designed. That being said, it is kind of a gross and grimy looking world that it's meant to be. It's creepy neo-future, things have fallen to shit in places, the rich getting rich and they live in their lovely little ivory towers that are fancy and shit, and you as a street kid, or in my case as a street kid, are used to this more slums type area, and the closer you get to the actual ground, the more slummy it is. And they did a good job differentiating that, and just generally speaking, I think the visual design is very good. Now that being said, I pointed out the faces are really well done. There's a lot of detail there, really well animated. For some reason though, characters' bodies lack that same detail. There are people who you can see their arms and their sleeves and, you can see your character's full body, and it doesn't look quite right because you have this really well detailed face and head. And then the body looks like something straight up from earlier generation shit. So it's just weird when you see that and it just doesn't quite function. And now to get into a part that I've done sort of in the past, but this is actually going to take a while longer. Let's talk about glitches. As I've already mentioned, there are some audio issues. As I've mentioned, there are some visual things that I'm not entirely in love with, but let's get into that even deeper. When we're talking about visuals, there are times where things don't sync up. There are plenty of people popping in and out of existence. Not just people, but items. I had an entire conversation with the dude about chickens, and there was supposed to be a dead chicken on the counter, and it didn't appear until after that conversation had finished. The number of times I've been driving down the road and there's been a car coming towards me and then just poof, gone. The number of times I've been walking around and people have just poof, appeared in front of me or disappeared while I was following them, etc. Just wow. And that has continued to happen even after the 2 patches that have been released as of this recording. Now, one glitch that I ran into and I never ran into again after one of the patches was everything would basically freeze, but not really freeze. All the audio would continue, but all the visuals would stop, and then it would just suddenly start again after, but several seconds later, Now, that did stop happening after the first patch. But that being said, I've had plenty of other glitches, like referring to the controls. As I pointed out, there were times where I was sneaking around and my character would just suddenly warp across the screen, and next thing you know I'm spotted and now I'm in a firefight that I could have avoided. Or there was the fact that during the game's tutorial, I can't confirm if this is still happening, my character would just start walking on their own every time I would finish one of the tutorial tasks. Then there were multiple times where apparently the air that I was firing through was harder than my bullets, but not my enemy's bullets. I would be aiming at them, firing at them, there'd be nothing to block the bullets, but I would not be getting hit markers while taking damage from them. That's obviously not okay. Then there were the multiple times where the game glitched and I couldn't use the D-pad, which is what you use to select dialogue options. So suddenly I'm in a conversation and I can't select a dialogue option, so I either have to pause, unpause, sometimes quit out to the menu, sometimes quit the game to get that to function again, and in a game where making decisions like that actually can matter, kind of a big fucking problem. Or how about the time the game stopped letting me scan objects, which is a feature that you use so that you can hack cameras, hack people's optics, just hacking in general, and suddenly I can't scan things, so then I can't hack things. Had to completely quit out of the game to fix that one. That was fun. Then there was the time that I had to step out of my vehicle, and guess what? All of a sudden I'm stuck in walk. I'm not able to jog, not able to move at normal actual speed, not able to sprint, just completely jacked. And I, again, had to pause. Then there was another time where I actually had to quit out of the game to get it to work again. There are just tons of weird glitches. I could probably go on for a few more minutes, but you're getting the point, which this is just going to bleed into the wrap-up now. That's just some of the glitches I ran into, and it's tragic, quite frankly, because this is one of those games where, at its core, it could be a truly phenomenal game. But what we were given is so far from that it's kind of not even funny. As of right now, Cyberpunk 2077 has been removed from some digital storefronts, a lot of refunds are being issued, and it makes sense because this game should not have been released. There is absolutely no reason that this game should have been released in this state. On top of that, CD Projekt Red has done some really sketchy things with this, like telling reviewers they can only review the PC copy, they can only use stock footage, they can't use their gameplay footage. That's sketchy shit. The reality of it is, this game was originally designed to come out on like the 360 supposedly, but then it got pushed to the Xbox One, and now we're reaching the Series X PS5 generation. And it's still not ready. Like, I understand a game being released with some glitches, but this game has a laundry list of glitches that just distract you from what's at the core of this game. Which is too bad, because at its core, I enjoy the story, I enjoy the gameplay, and I enjoy the controls, but there are so many little glitches that fuck up all of these things that it makes it difficult to enjoy the game as a whole. So I am going to recommend it, but I am going to recommend that you wait quite a while, like at least 6 months until they've started actually patching this stuff. If you have a Series X or PS5, wait until they've released the versions for that. Now, admittedly, since I was playing on a Series X, I didn't run into all the same issues that people on the base Xbox One or base PS4 are running into, but I ran into enough things that it really felt like this game was still months and months away from being ready to release. And you may or may not notice that throughout my gameplay footage that there are weird and glitchy things happening at times. There's a reason for that, because they were so easy and plentiful to capture. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so in the comments down below, why don't you tell me, are you fine with delays? Because me personally, delay it. Release a better product. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share, subscribe. Have a good one.
Whoa now.